I'm currently working on a few much bigger projects, including one that I've been planning for the past couple of years, which feels really exciting. So due to how much I have going on right now, I wanted to make a video for this week that's a bit on the shorter side. A few months ago, Athenaeus from the channel IMO Pancration reached out to me and said that he had a historical recipe that he hadn't seen covered by other historical channels before. This, of course, intrigued me. I'm always up for trying different types of historical food, especially lesser known recipes, and also then I ended up looking at what pancration even is, which was a world completely outside of the realm of my own historical research, and it was quite fascinating to learn a little bit about. If you're curious, a brief summary is that pancration is an ancient Greek combat sport which was featured in the Greek Olympic Games in 648 BCE. And Athenaeus researches all types of topics related to pancration and ancient Greek nutrition and diet, so he really knows his stuff. The mysterious recipe in question is for ancient Greek chickpea pancakes, and these are made using chickpea flour. Looking into chickpea flour pancakes, there are quite a few modern Greek recipes for making these, but it's interesting that there isn't much being discussed about them in terms of ancient or historical cooking. Some context as to how exactly this recipe came to light. This information was provided to me by Athenaeus, so a big thank you to him. Pancakes were called Tageniais in Athenian, and I might be pronouncing this wrong, with the name being derived from frying pan or taginon. Other historical food channels like the wonderful Max Miller's Tasting History have covered the making of these pancakes, but those were made with regular flour, not chickpea flour. You can see mentioning of this term for pancakes as early as the 5th century BCE in fragments of Metagenes and others. I've written all the exact fragment names and numbers I was provided in the description box citations if you're curious to learn more. These fragments, along with ancient authors such as Galen and Athenaeus, tell us some of the other ingredients in the regular flour pancakes, which includes honey, olive oil, curdled milk, sesame seeds used as a topping, sea salt, and so on. In Galen's text on the properties of foodstuffs, the version edited and translated by Owen Powell, at page 61 it is expressed, chickpea flour cooked with milk. Athenaeus, with his excellent research, utilized these various sources, referencing the text from Galen and the fragments for context clues, and with some cooking experimentation, he unearthed a recipe for ancient Greek chickpea flour pancakes. Because of the incompleteness and lacking information from many historical recipe texts, historians and researchers often have to interpret the information they do have available, and then from there create recipes based on that research. That is especially the case when quantities are concerned, as many historical texts and recipes do not give quantities for specific ingredients, so figuring out how things were made is more of a trial and error approach. Athenaeus mentioned in the email he wrote that the ingredients he added that were not mentioned in the historical sources was the egg, which was of course available during ancient Greek times anyways, and then also to modernize the recipe as a replacement for yeast, he added baking soda and baking powder. These ingredients can also be left out. This recipe isn't 100% historically accurate, but aside from the leavening, it is as accurate as most ancient Greek recipes available. He very kindly shared his experimentations with these ingredients and the final recipe with me, so that I could share it with all of you. And I am so excited to try these. I love pancakes, and normally I have to go through a lot of work to make them because I can't eat most wheat flours, so this historical option made from chickpea flour is just perfect. For the cooking process, I took 3/4 cups of full-fat milk and added 2 tablespoons of vinegar to get the milk to curdle, not curdle. At first I tried this with cold milk, but it was taking a very long time to curdle, so then I tried it again with hot milk, and this was much quicker. For the vinegar, either white vinegar or apple cider vinegar works really well. Here I'm using apple cider vinegar. Then I set this mixture aside and let the chemicals do their thing, and I added 1 cup of chickpea flour to another bowl, along with 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Finally, I added in 1/4 teaspoon of salt and gave everything a mix. All the ingredients that I will be using for this recipe are written in the description box if you'd like to read them. In a third small bowl, I cracked 1 large egg and mixed it with 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Once the milk had curdled, I didn't want it cooking the egg, so I let it cool down in a bowl of cold water. You can bypass these steps if you already used room temperature or even cold milk and just waited longer for it to curdle. Once cool enough, I added the egg and olive oil mixture to the milk and I mixed it all together. Finally, I added the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients and stirred it enough so that the flour would all be covered by the wet mixture, but not so much that things were well blended, so just stirring it slightly basically. I preheated a pan on medium heat and melted some butter, but olive oil also works perfectly fine if you'd rather use that. And I poured small amounts of the batter, about 3 tablespoons at a time, onto the pan. I didn't measure this one particularly precisely, I just eyeballed it and used my ladle. You can add more batter if you want larger pancakes, but I felt like eating some smaller ones, so that's why I used so little batter. I covered the pancakes with a lid and let them cook for a little while until the bottom solidified. So fluffy! Wow. And then I flipped them, letting the other side cook as well. Finally, one of my pancakes was done and it looked absolutely beautiful. So I repeated this process until all my batter was gone, and in the end I had about 8 of these small pancakes from the amount of batter that I made. I topped off the pancakes with some quince honey, which is a delicious honey that has added quince puree, and finally some sesame seeds. I accidentally poured way too many on at first, so I had to remove some, but the pancakes were ready to eat. I am back with my little plant leaf crown thing. I never know what this is called. A laurel? Is that the word? Okay, I think that's the word. And I've got my beautiful pancakes here, my chickpea pancakes, and they look so delicious. I'm gonna dig in. I'm gonna try them out and see how it goes. I've topped them off with a little bit of quince honey and some sesame seeds. All right, here's the first bite, and I've not tried them yet, so. Wow, these are amazing. These are probably some of the best pancakes I've ever had. That was amazing. That has to be one of the best pancake recipes that I've had. They were so light and so fluffy, and it's just wild to think that there's no wheat flour or no gluten flour in it. And also the chickpeas are so much more filling because they have a lot more protein than wheat flour would, or like a gluten-free alternative for those that can't eat wheat. So yeah, it actually felt like a nourishing meal. I really feel like one of those food channels right now that tries different things from different restaurants and like eats it on camera and then gives my review, but for historical things. So I give this one a 7 out of 5 ketons. It was that good. And I know a lot of people in the comments don't like the fact that I do these larger rating systems, but whoa, there's a fly. But basically, but the thing is, sometimes things are just so good and you have to give them a much higher rating because 5 out of 5 ketons just wouldn't do this recipe justice. Thank you so much to Athenaeus Bonus again for providing us with this recipe as well as doing the research. And if you'd like to see me eat only ancient Greek food for an entire week, then be sure to watch this video next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in 2 weeks for another video.